Good evening. It's Monday night all over again, and we welcome you to Zoom in on a fresh conversation with Mr. Booker T. Mattison. Hi. Zoom
Hello.
in on a fresh conversation is sponsored by Eyeless Diamonds LLC, brought to you by Milton McCulloch, author of Love and Emancipation and host of Night Talk. L.D. Robinson from Ladero Press, Mr. David Thompson of Miami, Florida, Silas, right? Silla's Book Maniacs, where book lovers unite, and the Fresh Book Festival, which is this week, the 8th and the 9th of January. It is a 2-day event. Please don't miss it. Sign up. The registration is free, and it's www.freshbookfestivals.net. So please silence your cell phones. And if you have a question for Mr. Booker T. Mattison, please put it in the chat box. Hi, Booker. How are you?
I'm
I
doing
can't
well. And
believe it's
yeah,
been four
besides that
years.
I'm here and not
I
there.
know, right?
Yeah,
It's been 4 years.
yeah,
It's been four
long time.
years. And
It's
five
been quite a
years.
partnership. Quite a partnership.
Yeah, 5 years since the day I saw Tony. Hey, Tony. I saw him coming out of this little house on the campus of Bethune-Cookman University. And I
Oh
thought,
yeah, that was the theater department. Yeah, yeah,
and I
yeah.
said, I know that guy. What is he doing in Daytona? And I don't know that he's here. Right? And so that was the beginning of a lifelong friendship and partnership. So I'm going to ask you a few questions because, I can't do it off the
Sure,
top of my head like you do.
sure, sure.
I'm going to ask you the road to becoming a filmmaker. So tell us about that journey.
Sure, that's a great question. I've been a storyteller and for as long as I can remember. I mean, going back to when I was as young as like a 2 or 3 years old. I had two older brothers. One was a year and a half older, and the other was 3 years older. So typically, the younger kid follows the older kids and plays the games that they do. So, but it was the opposite. I was very young, and I created this world called the Working Ticks, and I created the characters, and my brothers would come and play, and unbeknownst to me, I didn't know it at the time, but I was directing because I created these characters, and they were playing these roles. So storytelling is something that I've always done, and then from storytelling, then I started writing, from writing poetry to writing rhymes to debating my 11th grade history teacher, with essay exchanges. It was just the nature of how I was. And then I enrolled in community college to start my college career. And at Tidewater Community College in Virginia Beach, you had to choose a major before you could register. So math had always been my nemesis. So I'm rifling through the bulletin looking for the discipline with the least amount of math. And
Right,
I
exactly.
settled on radio and TV production. It wasn't like I had a particular interest in it. I just had the least amount of math. But fortunately, I had a professor, Alan Campbell, who was enthusiastic about the discipline and inspired me. And that's how I got into communicating visually. But for me, initially, I thought I wanted to be a reporter and eventually a news anchor. And then my junior year at Norfolk State, after I transferred from community college, I did an internship where I discovered that rather than covering other people's stories, I wanted to tell my own. And at that point, I decided that I wanted to be a filmmaker. So that was a very long and breathy answer to your question, but it's comprehensive because there were
Yeah.
lots of peaks and valleys and dips along the way.
But in the middle, you became a professor, right? Was that because, like most art forms, that you really can't eat off of them at an original state? So you felt like you should become a teacher or a professor, or how did
That's
that
actually
happen?
a great question. Well, that's a good question because I never intended
I
to
could put
be.
you on another view. Let me see. Speaker, go
What do you
ahead.
mean?
Go
You
ahead.
can't.
Mhm. Yeah, now you're big.
Oh, okay, okay. I never intended to teach, and I didn't go to film school to teach. And the interesting thing about how I got into teaching was maybe a year after I got my Master of Fine Arts in 1999, and a friend of mine, she knew the dean at the College of New Rochelle, and they were looking for adjuncts. So I was maybe a year or two out of film school, and I took it like as another gig because at the time I was a freelance boom operator, working on independent, films and commercials to pay my Manhattan rent.
Ooh.
So the teaching gig was another gig for me. So unbeknownst to me, it was something that I would continue to do over the years, and then eventually do it full time. So it wasn't something that I planned to do. It was something that kind of came along, and it wasn't until actually my second full time appointment when I was at Hampton University that I said, wait a minute, this is rather than it being a gig, it's a legit career path, which I never embraced it as that before because, being an artist, it was all about the art and creating it rather than teaching it, even though I've been teaching it now for many, many years.
And so it's interesting because I didn't know that, and I've known you for quite a while. I didn't know that the beginning of your filmmaking career was actually behind the camera.
Mm-hmm.
You said you were a boom operator. You learned all the behind the camera stuff first, right?
Well, no. Actually, the way the graduate film program at NYU worked, it was really a program for auteurs. You had to be able to write to get in. So most of the people there were writer directors, and at the same time, we had to learn all the various positions because we had to crew on other people's films, our classmates' films. So one of the things I liked about NYU was that you got a really comprehensive film school education, not just writing and directing, but most people came out of there with another skill that they can use to eat, to pay bills, when you get out of film school. So for me, I was boom operator, and then eventually I was doing location sound recording. But here's what's interesting about that, though. The reason why I gravitated towards sound when I was in film school is because of my recording career. When I was a rapper, so I was in
Mm.
studios, so I had my own microphone, so I was very comfortable, using microphones and capturing sound. So, when it came to what I would do on film sets, because it was quid pro quo, I do sound on someone's set, they gaff my shoot. So I gravitated naturally towards sound. So it's interesting. So that if you look at it close enough, you do see a through line, even though it's these seemingly disparate parts that came together to, I guess, help me to craft a life for myself and my wife and kids, so they have a roof over their head and food to eat.
That we have students who still talk about the wrap off you had when you were here 4 years ago. It
Yes,
wasn't a wrap off; it was
I
a
set those kids up. I set those young people up with human beatbox battle,
the
and
beatbox
I set
battle.
them up.
Yeah,
Yeah, they saw the
yeah,
old bald dude. Well, this old bald dude. What's this
yeah. They
aggressive dude?
still,
What
I
is he
mean,
gonna do? Yeah,
and
they
they've all
came up there.
graduated now, but they're still talking
Oh yeah,
about it. So it's just really
yeah. But
funny.
they got fried. They know the old dude still had
Yes,
it.
they did. And so, listen, I've seen from Exit 13 to Bird. Just kind of take us through because all of your films have lessons to learn,
Hmm.
right? Is that what the way you started it, or is that just divine intervention and that's how kind of it happened?
I think I call myself Mr. Both and, because for so many answers it's both and I do believe it's divine intervention because I do believe that there is a God, number one, and that He gives us gifts and He empowers us to use those gifts. We have agency over those gifts and how we choose to use them. Yes, so absolutely divine intervention, but also too, I like to say that passion is what drives my stories, and passion can be positive or negative. Those things that drive you most crazy, that you spend the most time thinking about. And you're an author, it's like it's something inside of you that's like, I have to address this in story form because it won't leave me alone otherwise, and then it comes out. So I like to say that I'm not the type of guy, and I say this, and it's actually not true as I think about it, because I'm a for hire writer as well. I like to say, oh yeah, I'm not the prolific one who can just sit down and bang stuff out. Okay, well if that's true, then how is it that someone can hire you and have you write, and you can literally write anything? I
Exactly.
guess for me, I like to say that I'm not,
A
when in
writer for
fact,
hire. Yeah.
right, but no, I don't mind that part. That's a nice little side hustle too. But the fact that I say that I'm not prolific, and I mean specifically about myself, where I feel like I need God to empower me to do, even when it's a write for hire. I just don't think I can just sit down and just write apart from God's investment in me. Even like the body can heal itself, but God still created the body, right?
Right.
So I do think it's a both and. It's a combination of both passion, those things that trouble me or excite me, but also divine intervention as well.
So Exit 13 is way different than the ones that came after it. Exit 13 was your first film or no?
That was my first narrative film, and let me explain what I mean by that. So in undergrad, I was shooting things, things on my own, little short narrative films without dialogue. So when I got to film school, the first film we had to make was a 4-minute MOS film, so a film with no sound. Then we had to make a documentary the second semester. But then the second year, this big second year film was my first narrative film, with sound and dialogue and all the departments represented. So yeah, it was my first narrative film. And the reason why it's so incredibly different is because one, it was a student film. I mean, I made that movie in 1996 in film school. So my goal wasn't to set out. I didn't set out to make a great movie. I wanted to explore parallel action and suspense, and also film noir. So I set out to explore and achieve certain competencies, and along the way, I created a film that still screens all these years later. So it's different for those reasons. The fact that it was a film school film, the fact that I did it so long ago, and also the fact that I was still figuring out who I was as an artist and what my unique voice was.
The two films that we're going to be privileged to see on Friday, your Friday, right? Yeah. um, is Who Am I? And it has an actor.
Ungabani, who are
Yes,
you?
yeah, I didn't want to mess
Yeah,
that
who are you?
up. What's it called?
Ungabani, who
That's
are you?
Who Are You?
Yeah.
And that is an African, right?
Hmm.
And that's what it means. Who are you?
It means yes. Who are you?
And
Yeah.
then there's Bird. So I don't want to give away the movie, but
Hmm.
both of those movies leave you with, and so is that what you wanted? Is that was that your initial goal? Because when we were at the Peabody, everybody
Hmm.
sat there, they just sat there because they wanted to, like jump into the screen.
Right.
So was that your focus?
It's interesting because Ungabani that's the first film that I've directed that I didn't write. So
Mm.
that was unique in that I didn't write it, because I am a writer director. So everything, excuse me, before that I wrote it. So the writer Mandel Holland, is a film school friend of mine. We had never worked together, and as far as him writing and me directing. So I had just made Bosniak, which I also screened,
Oh, I love Bosnia.
debuted, yeah. And that film cost a whole lot more money than I wanted to spend, and I was not going to spend that kind of money again. So I was looking for something short, because the fewer locations you have, the fewer characters you have, the lower
Right. The budget.
the less
Right,
money you need.
right,
So he came up with a story. We had a brief conversation about, as African American males, how in many spaces people see your color and your gender before they see your humanity. So, oh, black man came in. Oh, there's a black man. There's a black guy, and that's a reality that you live with. And so that judging a book by its cover, but then also, I told him that I wanted the protagonist to have to face an impossible choice. So it was a very brief conversation, and he went away and came back with the story. And yes, it does have that cliffhanger ending that kind of shocks you and leave you breathless. And Bird, is pretty shocking too.
it's
It's a
timeless.
different, yeah, it's a
It's
different kind of
timeless.
shocking,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And with that one, I made that film in 2015, I believe. So I'm trying to remember what kind of impact I was looking for at the end. I'm not quite sure. It's been so long ago. So I'm sorry I don't have a better answer
Oh,
for
no,
you.
no, no, it's fine. It's the difference between one and the other. Well, and no, it's the similarities, I'll say, is that they're
Right.
timeless,
Well, thank you. I
right?
appreciate that.
And
Yeah.
so you can show Bird 20 years from now and it will still have the same impact.
It's a heartbreaking narrative. It's
They're
definitely.
both heartbreaking narratives, right?
Yeah, you're
They're
right.
both
You're right.
heartbreaking
They're
narratives.
both
Right,
heartbreaking
right. They
for
really
different
are.
reasons.
They really
Yeah,
are.
you're right.
So anyway, we're looking forward to seeing those on Friday. Please register at www.freshbookfestivals.net. The next question is, in developing your stories
Hmm.
or your short films, tell us how you manage to be the storyteller, the
Hmm.
artist, the filmmaker, the director, the casting agent, all necessary elements of making a movie. How do you do that? Now, I know the one movie you have your own children in. They did a
Yeah,
fabulous job, right? And
yeah.
so that's a ladder that you really took. Uh, um, that was a. What if they didn't do well?
Well,
What if,
my daughter was in Bosniak,
right?
and it was the first
But
time
what if they
acting.
didn't do well? What if
But she
what if
she had
what?
she had to audition just like
Oh,
everyone
she
else.
did.
So,
Okay.
oh, absolutely. I don't give away. I don't. The only way I'm giving you a role is if I've seen you in tons of movies and TV shows, and I just know that you can do it. But
Right.
no, she absolutely had to audition, and she was the best person for the role. Otherwise, I wouldn't have cast her. And my kids, they know that this is what I do, and they've been on sets their whole life, and they know it's like, okay, yeah, I have to audition if I want this part. So yeah, well, if she would have failed in the audition, then that doesn't mean that she would have never been an actor, even though she has no interest in acting.
Oh, she
It just would have
doesn't.
been she
Oh,
wasn't good as.
wow.
No, actually, my youngest daughter, who's my youngest kid, I have four kids, 18, 17, soon to be 16 and 13. But my 13-year-old, she just was accepted. They have a new high school for the arts here in Gwinnett County, where I live, about half hour outside of Atlanta, and she was accepted to the inaugural class, and she wants to be an actor, which is interesting. Yeah, she's 13, and yeah, she's something else. I'm excited about what she'll learn and what she'll do in life.
So all those things, when you have to do all those things,
Hmm.
what is the hardest? The storytelling, the artistry, the filmmaking, the director, the casting.
The hardest part, I hate to say it, is figuring out where you're going to get the money from to do it. You
Right.
know, it's because I write the script, so that's not easy. That's difficult. But you write the script, you get excited about it, and then now I have to find the money to do it. And in the case of my last two short films, the University of Georgia, they've helped with support for my work, but it's not enough to cover everything. So it's good to not have to start from zero. So by far the fundraising part is the most challenging part, and it's the least fun, the least interesting, because you're going with your hand out, and you wish that you're independently wealthy enough to finance your own productions, but
Right.
that's not a reality that most people have. So by far fundraising is the most difficult part.
And if the to aspiring filmmakers, right? What should they learn about the craft first?
How to communicate psychology, how to turn that into action and behavior, because the challenge with because I also teach directing
Mhm.
and screenwriting. So the challenge that you find is most of us we start writing prose from a very young age, what, 5 or 6,
I
7,
was
depending on
seven.
who you are. So there's a way to write prose, and a screenplay is a different art form. So you're describing images, you're communicating with action and behavior and dialogue. So it's totally different. A short story or a novel is a complete art form, whereas a screenplay is an incomplete art form because the script is written not to be read and enjoyed, but to be a blueprint for a movie. So the main thing is to learn how to communicate visually. It's one thing to know how to tell stories, but now you have to take those stories and translate those into images, because that's what we're watching whenever we turn on Netflix or hopefully go to a movie theater again.
One of the things Saint Denis said was the hardest thing is to find an actor who knows how to act without words.
Yeah, and that's to her point, if you there's a saying that if you cast well as a director, that 85% of your job is done. So she's absolutely right. And one of the things I do in my directing class, the first 8 weeks, we are dealing with how to communicate with actors, how to run an audition, all these things that you don't think about. Most people, oh, it's a directing class. They think they want to jump right into the technical aspects. But the first half of the class is how do I communicate with cast and audition actors? So she's right, and it's something that students need to be taught because most directors are more comfortable dealing with a camera than dealing with another human being, that actor. So she's absolutely right. I guess for me, it's even though that's very important and very and challenging, it's easier for me, I guess, because I enjoy it so much. Um, but it is, especially if you're not getting, the people that you need, so you have to keep looking and keep looking and keep looking and keep looking, and meanwhile your shoot dates are approaching. So you hope you can cast someone who works soon and early to be one less, stressor uh, in your
Because
system.
when you have a short film, a lot has to be said without saying anything, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Like particularly the end of Who Are You?
Hmm.
Um, and the court scene in Bird.
Hmm.
Very
Yeah.
few words, right? But the main character really had to bring substance to that stand up 2 minutes, whatever it was, right?
Right. Right.
And I think that's hard to find someone who's able to do that.
Well, you're right, and in the case of Bird, that's a film that's like 9.5 minutes long. There's no on-camera dialogue. We hear, I think, two characters say something off screen,
Right.
and that film, when I sent it to the actors, all of them are like, "But there's no dialogue." They were shook because they're like, "Wait a minute, what am I supposed to do?" Because you can't hide behind the lines, you know. So you have to be able to emote and communicate what you're feeling and thinking without lines. And we do it all the time. I could tell you I love you, and you know if I'm telling the truth or not. Why? Not because of the words, but because of my what? Action and behavior. So when you have people who are that talented, but it's finding them that's the challenge. But when they come in the room and they nail it, it's like
I
that's it.
I know. And I thought, it wasn't that long. And I thought, no, there wasn't 5 paragraphs in this whole film. And yeah, but very well done, right? And most people don't think about that. They
That's
really
right.
just don't think
Absolutely.
about that. And being able to make sure that that person can project what it is you need
Right.
without the words, right?
Right. Right.
Anyway, everybody make sure you're there to see it.
But that's a win. But that's a win though, Donna, because most people, they're like, if you say there's a movie without any lines, any dialogue, they're like, that's strange, that's weird. But the fact that people are watching the movie and they're so emotionally caught up that they're not even missing the lines
right.
is a big win for me.
It's an amazing win. An amazing win. And I don't think most people at the end knew that there was no there was no dialogue,
Mm. Right,
right?
right,
I mean,
right,
maybe just us writers, and I'm thinking, oh, what? Nobody gonna say anything, right? But it was really, really good. So we have several people who you've inspired since you were here the last 4 years, and I think that what happens is they get really, really inspired to do something, but there are things that there's meat that they don't have yet, right? So when you talk about the meat, what kind of is workshops and should you do stuff behind the camera first? Should you try to get it all in before you decide you're going to be a filmmaker?
well now because most people are carrying around a phone this can produce better images than the 16 millimeter film that we shot with when I was in film school. So most people have a 4K camera. At the very least, they have a full HD 1080p camera. So you don't have to wait now. I mean, there's free editing software. When I was at Hampton, I taught a directing class. It was mobile directing, where the students shot and edited their films on their phones.
Wow.
So you don't really have to wait. The barrier, the financial barrier to entry doesn't really exist anymore. And what I recommend people do is just start shooting for fun, because it doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to. No one ever has to even see it. But you can take your phone and take your roommate or your kids or your spouse or whoever and craft a story, a little 1 to 2 minute story, and shoot it and edit it and learn how to start communicating visually.
Do you
Especially
think
for
that
authors.
diminishes the craft any?
No, it's storytelling. It's
Okay.
storytelling, and it's visual storytelling, and you're using a camera. The type of camera you use doesn't really matter. What matters is if you want to be a filmmaker, you're not telling stories on the page through books. You're telling stories visually, and you have a full HD camera in your pocket that
Mm.
you can use to shoot. And in this phone, and now the trend is you have three different lenses. So you have wide, medium, and close up. So you have three different lenses. So you can actually shoot the way I shoot on set, except rather than switching lenses, I have three different lenses on my phone. So shoot. It doesn't cost you anything. Shoot.
Wow, I just thought that maybe they were missing something, but you're telling me no, just
No.
do it, right? Yeah, it's like being a writer. You start with short stories, you start with
Right.
plays, yeah. Hmm.
But the concept, but even film school as a concept is very recent in academia. You're talking like the late 60s when the first film schools showed up. So, before that, people learned how to make movies by shooting them. They didn't, there were no films, there was no such thing as a film school. So they learned by doing what? Shooting.
Hmm.
So you're going to learn by shooting, and if you want to supplement your learning with books, that's great. But one thing that Thomas Edison said, I mean, a quote that I use from him all the time is he said that whoever controls the motion picture industry controls the most powerful medium of influence over the people. But in that same article, the New York Times article, I forget what year it was from. I actually have a PDF of it because I finally found the original quote that I've been using for years. But he also said that film was better at teaching than books. And the commercialization came in, so it never took off in that way. But he's actually right. I mean, think
Mm.
about it. Now with all these videos on YouTube, people who couldn't put things together, oh, I don't look at manuals anymore. I go to YouTube. Okay, put in the model number of the lawnmower or whatever it is, and then you sit there and you watch, and it's easier than reading a book, isn't it? So Edison was onto something. We just commercialized the medium. So just shoot, just shoot.
When now this is your fourth year, this is different because it will be virtual,
Mhm.
but just as poignant. The first year was Bethune-Cookman University. Tell me about that experience for you.
That was, it was lit, as the young people say. It was off the chain. I mean, the whole auditorium was full, and we had a party up in there.
It was
You
nice.
know, yeah,
Yeah.
we had a party up in there. And the cool thing is we had students, we had the leaders of the city. We had sponsors. It was multiple age demographics, and it was packed, and the audience was reacting, to the films and the beatbox battle. I mean, it was
It was
you
good.
know, yeah, and I've done like a lot of events around the country over the years for both film and as an author. That was by far one of the that was one of the biggest turn ups
You had a
that
good
I've done.
time, and it was right after that the university kind of got in trouble and couldn't
Mm,
present us anymore. So then we went
mm,
to the News Journal Center. Now I thought long about that,
mm,
because I knew that our demographic wouldn't come, right?
mm, mm.
But I thank you for coming because the people who did come had never been in that building.
It's amazing. That is amazing.
Had
Beautiful, beautiful facility.
no,
That one was off the hook. Well, I mean, every time I come down, that's why it's so heartbreaking that we're doing this on Zoom now, right?
right. Yeah.
Um, but the vaccine is here,
Yeah.
so hopefully we'll be back
Yay.
soon. But that was great too.
Yeah.
The movie was, I mean, beautiful. It was just
It
beautiful.
was a beautiful venue.
Yeah, absolutely. And the
The Peabody,
discussion,
go ahead.
the discussion there,
Oh, the discussion there was great.
yeah, it was great. It was
Yeah.
great.
Then we had the Peabody. Now, the Peabody is what they call across the bridge in the city of Daytona. And if you understand the history of that, most Black people worked on the beach side, but had to be out of the beach side by 5 o'clock before it got dark, right? Same kind of presence when you were there. And I don't know if I shared the story with you or not, but there were two 84-year-old women who had never been in that building.
That's
And
amazing.
it was heartbreaking for me, but very rewarding for you because I think they told everybody over the age of 80 that they, they met you, they were there, and it was very nice. It was very nice, but very different.
Yeah, it was nice. The pre what do we have? The pre
The
party of
VIP party, yeah.
yeah, yeah, that was
The
nice.
red
I mean,
carpet.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was you know how to put on a good show,
Well,
Donna.
I think what I wanted to say was, you were kind of a guinea pig. I'm sorry to say that, but it helped us a lot, and I appreciate that
That's great.
because it opened up. Let me tell you what it did. The Peabody, they had to bring in everything the year you were here.
Hmm.
Now they have everything ready. It's part of their standard auditorium setup, right? And that never would have happened if you had not come. So I do thank you. And when the world opens up, we'll go back.
Let's go back.
Yeah, we'll go back. So managing during the pandemic in filmmaking, is filmmaking possible now, or what's the pivot for you?
Yeah, it is, and there are new protocols that have to be followed, and now in LA they're calling for to kind of scale back on some of the production that has started back up. And even in my classes, I've limited the length of the films, how long they can be, the size of the crew and cast. So it's definitely had an impact. And interestingly, one of my friends, he's an actor, his name's Chad L. Coleman. He's been in I don't know what he was here shooting, but we couldn't even connect. He was in my film The Gilded Six Bits. He played Joe Banks. And
Oh,
in Habeas Corpus, he
you're
played
using habeas corpus.
right, right, right. So, but he was here in Atlanta shooting something in the last several weeks, but we couldn't even connect because when he was here, he couldn't go out and be
You
seeing
couldn't
people.
leave the studio.
Millions of dollars of at stake. So it's like, no, you can't go see your friends. Your friends can't come here because we're going to come here. We're going to work, and we're going to get you back home.
Period.
So we couldn't even connect. Another friend of mine, she was here directing something for Aspire. Same deal. Couldn't see them. So it's had an impact. Yes, there's production happening, but it's different. There are new protocols that are in place. So hopefully we can get this thing under control and get not just the film industry back, but most everything back to some sense of normalcy.
So tell me the hardest thing besides money in the filmmaking industry.
Um, well, I think that when you take someone like myself, who I'm an academic who still makes films, so it's very different than, say, someone who is, say, an independent filmmaker who hasn't crossed over yet, so they don't have a lot of reserves. That's the person who's really hit hard, because I have filmmaker friends who are very, very well off. Sure, 6 to 8 months off is problematic, but
But
that's very different than someone who, I call them middle class filmmakers. They're in the film and television industry, but they're very much middle class. They're not rich. So imagine, 6 to 8 months without work. I mean, it's very challenging for those individuals. And in my case, in the case of academia, it's great because the schools haven't closed down. But imagine if they had. It's not like I'm going to keep getting a check.
right, right.
So yeah, it's most challenging for those, those what I call middle class filmmakers. They get up and go to work just like someone who's a teacher or a plumber, and you know it's very challenging for them because there is no work to go to for some of them.
Mm. And so what's the pivot for them? Is there a pivot?
Well, I'll share this, and this is anecdotal. Um, but I sit on the search committee for when we hire new professors at UGA in my department, and every year that I've been there, we've had a search committee, and every year there's more and more people in the applicant pool who have better and better credentials and who are willing to leave, LA or New York and move to Georgia because, again, there's so much happening, so much uncertainty in the business. And, it's also a young person's game too. So, I'm 50, so a lot of my peers are my age and older. Just like, all right, the rat race of New York and LA, it's time to slow it down. So
Right,
many are trying to get
exactly.
academia. They want to get into academia because, again, you still have to make films if you're, if you're tenured or in a tenure track position, you can't. That's how you get tenure, not from teaching. At the same time, you still, yes, you have the filmmaking component over here, but you're also getting, a salary from your institution. So it's very, very different than someone who 100% of your income is from film and television production, and you're not rich.
Right.
That's that's a challenge.
Yeah. So the difference between Virginia and Atlanta is night and day.
A lot of it is similar, but as it relates to film and television production, it's night and day. Because there's a film industry here. We're number 3 in the world for film and
Wow.
television
Yeah.
production. Yeah, in Georgia, LA is number 1, New York's number 2, and we're number 3. So everyone shoots here. So there is no film industry in Virginia, um, which was a challenge. Um, but as far as the similarities politically, it's similar. Formerly red, now purple. Um, so because you have the browning of the suburbs. Same thing. So politically, it's similar. Now a purple state used to be red.
Right.
Film and television, it is night and day. Definitely night and day.
The most enjoyable thing about your craft.
Telling stories that people respond emotionally to. Um, no one likes to, tell a story and people don't react or respond. But when people get a lot of meaning out of it and they can discuss it and talk about it and help you to see things in it that you yourself didn't see, that's the most. And then you steal it and then use it in another interview.
How many stories do you have just sitting around waiting?
Oh, I have no clue. You know why? Because, but here's why I don't know is because on my laptop, I have so many years of files, and some of them are like files within files. Like one folder I know my daughter created years ago was dad stuff. I don't even know what's in the dad stuff, that folder. So I don't even know. I would say easily, and you're not talking about completed stories. You mean just ideas, story ideas? Oof,
Yes.
man. Oh my goodness. If I had to guess, I don't think it's, I don't think it's, I don't even think it's 100. I would say maybe 30, 30, 30 or 40 story
Hmm.
ideas.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Tony's like, nah, he ain't telling the truth. No, no, yeah, but for me, that's a lot. That's a
Right.
lot. Yeah.
Hmm.
And
So
and look, and I'm sure there are a lot of content creators that have way more stories than I do. You know, because I'm not that prolific person. I just banging out idea after idea after idea. That's not the way I work. And maybe I could if I had to, but thankfully I don't.
I did a TV show not too long ago where the group of people had taken a truck, what's that platform place where trucks back up? What's that called?
The truck stop,
No, they back up and they unload, and then there's, I don't know what you call it.
like at the warehouse where they back up and
Yes.
take.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So they
Okay.
took that whole warehouse and made it 5 different studios, one for
Hmm.
sports, one for conversation, one for like days of our lives type stuff, right? And one for strictly one-on-one conversation. Would
Okay.
you ever consider putting a studio together like that with
I personally would.
collaborators?
Yeah, I personally wouldn't, and the reason why is it's a tough business, especially here in Atlanta. We have some of the biggest and best sound stages in the world, and for me, it's like side hustles like that. For you to be successful and to see anything, you have to go hard with it, and it's such a
Mm.
diversion from, I guess, the gatekeepers that I interact with, and kind of, I guess, the path that I'm on. I wouldn't, but I do think that there probably is here in Georgia, for example, a market for kind of a lower to mid
Right.
level
That's what I was
sound
thinking.
stages. Yeah, lots of people who they don't have the type of rates that the larger facilities charge. That's not my business, but I think that the right investment team could make a good run here in Georgia because there's lots of people who can't afford the rates of the bigger places, but they would love to shoot, on a sound stage.
Yeah, Florida isn't the big movie. Well, I mean, a lot of movies, portions of a lot of movies are shot here. But this particular place, it was packed, the whole time we were there with different things going on. Screenwriting seems to be the most difficult task from the outside world because so much has to be said emotionally without words. You would say that's true?
Well, you do have words, dialogue as a tool. I guess my philosophy is that dialogue is merely a sound effect, and
Right?
too often, for beginning or developing filmmakers, and you even see this with authors too, beginning authors. The characters are saying exactly what they think and telling you exactly what they feel, and they're telling rather than showing. So all those same issues you have to address in a screenplay, and it is difficult. And the reason why is because, as you say, your community, you don't have this interior monologue with these characters. You can't go from 1783 to 1927, from one sentence to the next. And if you do, there's budget implications, right?
Right.
It is difficult. And what's interesting is that I feel like I really understand the art form probably in the last 5 years. And you figure what, I got my MFA in what, 1999?
Hmm.
Probably in the last 5 years, I feel like I really understand the form. Um, and I'm still learning, of course, but it's very, very difficult because it is so different from, a novel or a short story. It's a different art form, even than a stage play. So yes, it's indeed a challenge, and knowing structure, which is the biggest thing, is the biggest barrier because someone says, "Hey, I have a great story," and but they don't know how to screenplay structure, which we expect when we go to see a movie. We expect that inciting incident, that big thing to happen around 10 minutes in, and then we know that, in the second act, all the major complications have been established. Now we're going to go into this new world and they're going to fight and duke it out. And we know there's going to be a climax. We just expect these things, and, in a novel, you can get away without that stuff.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you can't because you're like, wait a minute, where's the all is lost moment? You know, where's the climax? Where's the resolution? We expect these things because we've been watching movies since we were what? Uh, since we came out of the womb, for crying out loud.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, so screenwriting, it's definitely
It's
tough.
it's hard. So, is there anything else you'd like to share with us? Anyone have a question for Mr. Mattison? Please put it in the chat room really quickly. So I will tell the audience that we are negotiating with Emory-Riddle University to bring Booker T there virtually during Black History Month. I
That'd be
think
great.
it'll be there again. You're going to be first, a first type of venture for them, and so we're really working hard on that negotiation to make
Okay,
that.
that'd be great. Yeah. Too bad I can't come down. I'm gonna come and
Oh,
hang
I
out.
know, because you know what, Emory Riddle is beautiful. It is state of the art, everything,
Wow.
because it's aeronautical university. But
Sure.
I think that if we blow their socks off virtually, that we'll definitely be able to do something in 2022. So I'm
Love
excited
it.
about that. Tony, any questions? Leroy, Stan? No? No, Stan, no questions. Leroy, you don't have any questions. You're the the guy who puts on plays, and he's very prolific. And he did my first play from a
Nice.
book called what was it called, Leroy?
Box Kids.
The
And
Box Kids. And
Mhm.
they put on a play at the book festival that was awesome. Thank you so much.
That's
Everybody
nice.
talks about that too.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah. So I need a pearl of wisdom from you. That's what I always ask for. So
Sure, sure, sure. The pearl of wisdom is document your emotions. Um, some people do it in the form of journaling. Some people do it in the form of writing stories. But in particular, because things are so difficult, it's important to get these emotions down while they're raw. Because this, you won't be able to document them or recall them with their power the farther away you get from the actual trauma. So document it, not because you're some weirdo who traffics in difficulty, but so that you can incorporate these very real and unprecedented and raw emotions into stories that will move people and transform lives.
Wow. So stay tuned for Friday, I think, and Saturday, because
Yep.
Booker interviews Troy Johnson from AABLC. He interviews Keith Kareem Williams from Brooklyn.
Homies.
And then his movies are being shown. Please log in to www.freshbookfestivals.net and enjoy his engaging conversations. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and I will see you soon.
Well, see you.
Yeah.
See you on Friday. Good
Take care
night.
now.
Tell
All
everybody
right.
to say hello at the house.
I will.
Okay,
Take
good
care
night.
now. All right. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Wonderful. Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.